Welcome back, Mastercrafted Gaming fans. Kyle here again, this time with an Orc preview for version 3 Kings of War. Let's start off with the Orc Special Army Item upgrade, which is the Orcish Skull Pole. That's very hard to say. It took about 6 or 7 takes to do that right. It is an item that came over from 2nd edition, and it is a single-use upgrade that allows them to gain the brutal special rule just for that one combat. So it's a pretty easy one and done sort of thing. For being as cheap as it is, it's a very effective use for an army that is very combat focused. The infantry unit that we'll start off with is the Orcs. This is a unit that has always been one of my favorites because it throws out a lot of punishment to their opponent, a lot of attacks and that sort of thing. So they're a little bit cheaper now, and they're also fearless. And that's the biggest 2 changes in my opinion, along with the wild charge upgrade. So for a troop and a regiment, they can throw out more attacks than most, and they're going to do a lot of damage with their base crushing strength 1. So really nice option here, and they also have that berserker keyword, which I'm going to show you a unit later on that helps them, especially with that keyword. This next one is something that's going to help a lot of different armies that aren't just orcs, so you can kind of pay attention here if you're especially a goblin player, for example. Trolls. Trolls are still almost exactly the same, except they're missing one very important thing. They're no longer irregular, so now they can be allied, they can unlock additional units in the army, and that's a pretty big deal. So still get that pretty steep nerve gap between them, but at the same time they are an efficient, cheap, large body that you can throw out there, and now they let you buy other stuff in the army. So fantastic change for 3rd edition. A new unit for the Orcs in 3rd edition is the Skulk Raider Chariots. Now, these guys are not going to have the full chariot profiles as some of the other options that are out there, but the ones that are available do give you the ability to have some extra ranged attacks. So Skulks are going to be a newer thing that it kind of expands on in Orcs army-wide to give them some more ranged options where they didn't have it before. So this is just one example in this particular category with the large cavalry that gives them some more combat effectiveness and also movement and shooting as well. So I think this is going to be a unit that a lot of people like. It's going to be easy conversion opportunities until we come out with anything official for them. So enjoy and pick up those guys as quickly as you can. The Wardrum is a staple unit selection for a lot of Orc players, and in 3rd edition it saw a couple of minor tweaks, but they're pretty significant. So the points are staying almost exactly the same, and it still functions almost exactly the same. The biggest difference in my opinion is that you've got a little bit more options now with it. I particularly like the ability to purchase Dread. This is something that when you stack it on top of the Orc's abilities to do certain things, that's going to be very helpful. You cannot, however, stack Dread and Brutal at the same time, so keep that in mind. Dread, Brutal, Shattering all don't stack. You can only get one modifier. So when you're purchasing your upgrades and you're looking at the Wardrum as a possible option, especially if you're considering to pay for the Dread upgrade, then you want to make sure that you actually are pairing those things up accordingly with your battle groups. Lastly, let's talk about the Morax Mansplitter. This is a new hero option that is going to go right along with the Morax that I started off with. And he has got the ability to give an aura that grants Thunderous Charge to any of the units that have the Berserker keyword with them. So I actually like this unit quite a bit for the points that you're paying for him, for the ranged options that he has, and that little bit of punchiness that he's got as well. He is not that slow. He's going to hit pretty well. He's got the extra, the throwing axes and things like that. So really effective synergy unit, but also, dangerous in his own right. So great addition to the Orcs that they're getting along with the other new units in the army as well. One last thing I'll talk about is a core rule change that benefits the Orcs quite a bit. Being heavy infantry in their standard base size being a 25mm base, they're going to have larger footprints. This has always been a challenge for a lot of players because it's very easy to get double charged and that sort of thing. Now you're going to have the ability to dictate your charges a lot easier because of how measuring between units for combat works. Dan King also was the first to break this on the 4-Foot Snake podcast, and what it is you're going to measure distances between units from the closest points, not necessarily the leader points when you're declaring a charge. So with Orcs and their larger base sizes, this is going to allow you to kind of close the gap and get a lot more speed out of your units' than you did in 2nd edition. So this is a pretty big change overall that I think needs mentioned for Orcs, for Dwarves, those type of units that were a little bit slower and harder to get into combat, especially, like Salamanders, the 25mm heavy infantry units. It's a big change, so hopefully you Orc players are happy with that. It is going to make a difference in the long run. It might not seem like it, but it genuinely does. So that is it for Orcs. That is it for this week. Next week, we've got a couple of different things to look at. like I mentioned in my last video, if Jesse can get ogres to me, I'd love to have them out. If not, I do have a backup plan. Maybe some abyssal stuff, some abyssal dwarves, you know, something like that. I need to get into some good guys too, because we've gone through a lot of evil stuff so far. So hope you're enjoying these, and there's a lot more to come. We're not even halfway there. So thanks, guys.